Imagine the bustling agora of ancient Athens in the late 5th century BCE. Amidst the shouting merchants, ambitious politicians, and traditional philosophers, there walks a truly unconventional man. He's barefoot, wearing the same tattered cloak every day, and he has a relentless, almost irritating habit of asking deeply uncomfortable questions. This is Socrates. Before his time, the great thinkers were primarily obsessed with the stars, the elements, and the physical makeup of the universe, the schools of thought we now call the pre-Socratics. But Socrates shifted the entire focus of Western philosophy inward. He introduced a revolutionary concept known in Greek as epimeleia tes psyches, or the care of the soul. While his fellow citizens were chasing bigger bank accounts, more political influence, and higher social reputations, Socrates stood in the middle of the square and challenged them to stop. He argued that the soul is the most precious thing we possess, far more vital than the body or our external possessions. To Socrates, a life spent ignoring the quality of your own character wasn't just a minor oversight, it was a tragedy. He believed our primary duty is to make our souls as good, as wise, and as virtuous as possible. Socrates' life took a radical turn when the oracle at Delphi delivered a puzzling prophecy. No man was wiser than he. Socrates was baffled. He didn't feel wise. In fact, he felt remarkably ignorant. To prove the oracle wrong, he set out on a mission to find anyone who possessed true wisdom. He interrogated the pillars of society, the politicians, the poets, and the skilled craftsmen. But he found a recurring pattern. The politicians spoke with confidence but lacked substance. The poets produced beauty through inspiration but couldn't explain their own words. And the craftsmen were experts in their niche, yet mistakenly believed this made them masters of all life's deeper truths. Socrates finally realized the paradox. His wisdom came from a humble, clear-eyed awareness of his own ignorance. This realization transformed him into the gadfly of Athens. He saw himself as an annoying insect sent to sting the complacent city into intellectual action. To Socrates, the greatest service was forcing people to look inward and justify their values. He argued that chasing external shadows without seeking internal clarity was a life fundamentally wasted. Real wisdom begins when we admit how little we truly know. To really grasp Socrates' message, we have to pause and redefine what he actually meant by the soul. To the Greeks before him, the word psyche usually referred to a mere breath of life, a ghostly shadow that simply drifted away when the body died. But Socrates did something revolutionary. He argued that your psyche isn't a vaporous ghost. It is your true self. It is the seat of your intelligence and your moral character. It is the part of you that perceives truth and makes every ethical choice you face. He looked at it through a very practical lens. Think about how we treat our bodies. We exercise, we maintain our strength, and we strive for physical fitness. Socrates argued that we must apply that same rigor to our inner lives. He famously insisted that a soul cluttered with false beliefs and unexamined prejudices is a diseased soul. Just as an injured body fails to function, a clouded mind is incapable of finding true happiness or acting with justice. To Socrates, care of the soul meant a commitment to deep, relentless reflection, purging those toxic illusions to keep our moral compass healthy and clear. To Socrates, the primary tool for this delicate care of the soul wasn't a set of rules or a long list of commandments, but the elenchus, the Socratic method. Socrates didn't deliver grand lectures from a podium. Instead, he engaged in the gritty work of asking pointed, relentless questions. By stripping away false certainties and exposing the hidden contradictions in a person's beliefs, he wasn't trying to humiliate his neighbors in the marketplace. Rather, he was performing a vital kind of spiritual surgery. He firmly believed that you simply cannot begin to care for your soul until you first realize that your current beliefs are deeply flawed.
This uncomfortable process leads to a state known as aporia, or philosophical confusion. While it feels like a dead end, Socrates saw it as the necessary first step toward genuine wisdom. Think of it as an intellectual purification, a way to scrub away the ego and the half-truths we tell ourselves. It was intended to clear the path, creating the mental space required for the soul to finally recognize and embrace the truth. Only through this confusion can the light of real understanding begin to shine through.
One of the most radical pillars of Socratic thought is the equation, virtue is knowledge. It sounds simple, but the implications are staggering. Socrates famously argued that no one ever does evil knowingly or willingly. Think about that for a second. If someone acts cruelly, dishonestly, or is consumed by greed, Socrates wouldn't call them wicked in the traditional sense. He would call them mistaken. They are operating under a profound delusion. They've done a faulty calculation, believing that accumulating wealth or seizing power is inherently better for them than practicing justice. In this view, vice is actually a form of ignorance, a failure of the intellect to recognize what is truly beneficial. Therefore, the care of the soul is largely a matter of education. It's about a rigorous, lifelong pursuit of what is truly good. Socrates believed that once you strip away the false promises of fame or fortune and truly understand the nature of the good, you naturally align your actions with it. You don't have to force yourself to be virtuous. You simply act on your new understanding. This alignment leads to eudaimonia, not just a fleeting feeling of happiness, but a deep, soulful flourishing that remains unshakable. Imagine walking through the crowded agora of Athens. Around you, people are boasting about trade deals, political influence, and the expansion of the empire. It was a society obsessed with material success and public image. Into this noise stepped Socrates. He didn't offer investment advice. Instead, he asked a jarring question. Are you not ashamed of caring so much for the making of money and for reputation and honor, while you do not care for wisdom or truth and the best possible state of your soul? This wasn't just a moral scolding, it was a profound philosophical insight. Socrates argued that things like money, beauty, or even health are fundamentally neutral. They aren't good by default. Think of them as tools. In the hands of a wise person, wealth can be used for justice. In the hands of a fool, it only amplifies their vices. Socrates taught that external goods only become beneficial when they are guided by a wise and virtuous soul. Without a healthy soul to direct them, even the greatest riches are merely instruments for causing harm to oneself and others. The soul is the director. The body and its possessions are simply the cast. This radical commitment to the soul was put to the ultimate test during Socrates' trial in 399 BCE. Facing the death penalty on charges of impiety and corrupting the youth, he refused to stop his public questioning just to save his life. He told the jury that he would rather die 1,000 times than abandon his divine duty to wake them up to the importance of their own souls. Even in his final hours in a prison cell, as captured in Plato's Phaedo, he remained remarkably calm, cheerful, and inquisitive. For Socrates, the care of the soul wasn't a hobby or an academic exercise. It was the very essence of human existence. He believed the soul's health was tied to virtue and knowledge, not material wealth or reputation. He famously concluded his defense by declaring that the unexamined life is not worth living. To him, existing without questioning one's values was like sleepwalking through reality. He chose the hemlock because a life without the freedom to tend to the soul was no life at all. This moment transformed philosophy from a mere intellectual pursuit into a life or death commitment. Socrates' message remains a vital, even radical antidote to the noise and fragmentation of our modern world. In an era defined by digital distractions and a relentless pursuit of external validation, his call to look inward is more relevant than ever. Caring for the soul, or epivaleia held to, isn't a passive concept. It's an active carving out of space for deep reflection. It requires us to apply the Socratic method to our own lives, relentlessly questioning our internal biases and the shadows of social media approval. We must shift our focus from the accumulation of wealth or status to the cultivation of our moral character, what the Greeks called arete. This is a direct invitation to take radical responsibility for our own mental and moral health. By following this Socratic path, we recognize that the most important journey we can ever take isn't across the globe, but across the landscape of our own minds. It leads us away from a fragmented existence and toward a more honest, intentional, and virtuous version of ourselves. Ultimately, the examined life isn't just a philosophy. It is a way to reclaim our humanity in a world that often forgets the weight of the soul.